Hi everybody, we're reading Gooseberry Park and we're on chapter 8, A Very Big Risk, page 46. When evening descended and the ice storm had stopped, the professor still slept while Kona kept vigil at the window. Trembling as giant pine trees bent their icy heads to the ground and jumping at the sharp sounds of thick bark breaking. All of the lights in the neighborhood were out. The refrigerator didn't hum, the plant light didn't buzz, and the warm furnace air didn't hush through the vents. Professor Albert's fireplace and the gas post lamp in the front yard were the only sources of light, and they cast a funereal glow upon the house and its occupants, stranded like polar bears on an Arctic floe. "What are we going to do, Gwendolyn?" Kona asked, his big head casting a giant shadow over her bowl. "Stumpy is in serious trouble." "Yes," Gwendolyn answered, nodding. "It's serious, very serious. Even if her tree is still standing, she will be trapped in her nest, and the ice, the babies." "I have to help her," Kona said, pacing in circles around the living room. "Kona, dear, what can you do? She is at the top of a tall tree. There would be no way of reaching her, and the journey to the park, treacherous, very treacherous indeed. The ice is difficult, nearly impossible to cross, as poor Professor Albert demonstrated earlier. Trees are coming down, heavy branches dropping from great heights. Kona, you would be taking a very big risk, and perhaps for naught." "That means for naught." "She is over 100 feet in the air." "But what if she isn't, Gwendolyn?" Kona stopped pacing and looked at the crab. "What if her tree is one of those that came down?" Gwendolyn shook her head sadly. "If it is, then, well, I very much doubt, dear, that Stumpy, it'd be such a fall." The old crab looked at the dog and spoke gently. "Her chances of surviving seem very unlikely." Kona took a deep breath and with eyes wide and sincere answered, "Whether she is alive or not, Gwendolyn, I have to take care of her." The crab sighed. "Well, my dear, I expect you do. But I am not sure how you will accomplish this." 5 minutes later, Gwendolyn was working on the lock on Professor Albert's front door. Can you see? She's trying to pick the lock, trying to get it open with her. What happens? Kona held her steadily in his mouth, and with a deft claw she turned the mechanism gently, and then click, it was done. Kona placed her back in her bowl. "Thank you for not sneezing, dear," she said. "I am still not sure if I can get the door open," said Kona. "Just pretend the knob is a bone," Gwendolyn answered. "I have every confidence you will do it." And the dog did. After only a minute or so of vigorous gnawing and biting, the door popped open. Kona looked back at his good friend staring anxiously through the glass, at Professor Albert snoring peacefully on the sofa, and at his own warm bed in the corner, and at the inviting flames of the fireplace. "I'll be back soon, Gwendolyn," he said. "Of course you will," said the crab. "Take good care, dear." She did not want Kona to know how worried she was. When Kona went out to the front door, he didn't close it all the way behind him. He needed to be able to get back into the house before Professor Albert woke again. Kona breathed deeply, took one long, confident step, and with a magnificent slide, shot right off Professor Albert's porch into the top of a juniper bush. It's pretty icy outside and slippery. He sprawled there. He groaned and looked out at the several blocks that he would have to cross to reach to Gooseberry Park. He looked back at Gwendolyn in the window, and her antennae were swirling around and around. And just then, a heavy branch from a tree across the street crashed into his neighbor's front yard, taking several broken shingles with it. Kona sighed and then carefully maneuvered back onto his feet. Inching his way slowly, he began his icy journey. Gooseberry Park seemed to him to be on the other side of the world. So instead of taking the sidewalk, Kona decided to cut through yards. It would save time, and there would be more things to hold on to. He crossed one yard, hanging onto a hemlock hedge. A second yard had a rail fence that he steadied himself against, and in another, a long concrete planter kept him on his feet. But some yards had nothing at all to hold on to except the occasional ice-covered bush. And in these yards, Kona danced, skated, skied, and rolled. He fell again and again, and once he struck his nose so hard that it bled. Kona saw not one sign of life along the way, save for a yellow tomcat who tried to impress him by strolling easily across the top of an Oldsmobile. Kona gave him a sour look and went on. The dog's body was bruised and his spirits had taken a beating as well, but he was determined. He knew where to find Stumpy's tree, and he was bound to make it there. Something inside was telling him to do this. His teeth ached from holding on to every solid object that he could grasp, and his tongue was numb with cold. But something called to him, and no matter the price, he would answer. We'll stop there. We'll read more tomorrow.